beautiful souls, welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I want to talk to you about my writing journey of publishing 2 books, one of them being self-published and the second one working with a traditional publisher. And I just want to share an honest overview of my experience. Before I begin, I want to shout out to my amazing writer partner and co-author of both of these books, Alicia Puig. I have nothing but praise for her. We work so well together and we are amazing writing partners. So this review is just kind of my opinion and my experience with these 2 different types of models. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each of these structures which are available to you, right? So if it is a dream of yours to work with a traditional publisher, that's awesome. You can totally do it. But I just wanted to share why, there's some reasons to work with a traditional publisher versus self-publishing. So first of all, I want to start with our first title, The Complete Smartest Guide, which we wrote originally in 2019, but then we ended up expanding on it and creating this full version in 2020. And this book is perfect for the emerging artist. We wrote it with the beginner in mind, and we summarize everything that helped us build our careers, from social media to email marketing to working with art fairs, commissions, and so on and so forth, as well as incredible interviews from other professionals that inspire us from our community, such as Ashley Longshore, Erica Lee Sears, Alonzo Guevara, and so many others. So this book was such a beautiful journey to write, and even though our self-publishing journey actually wasn't by choice, initially we did get a book deal for this title, but it ended up not working out, and so we had to self-publish. But I will say some of the benefits of self-publishing is that you have complete creative freedom. You get to decide how long it takes for you to write it. You get to decide how you want to design the book with the limitations of the self-publishing platforms in mind. So that is going into some of the disadvantages, the lack of paper choices, the lack of, potentially cover texture choices, your limit to, maybe how much you can make depending on how much you print, and as well as, just limitations in terms of budget. When you're working with a traditional publisher, they typically have a budget for design, for editing, and for paper, so you do have that advantage as you work with them. But I will say the beautiful thing about self-publishing is that there is no stress unless you create the stress yourself. And so for me, it was so beautiful because I truly was intrinsically motivated and I just wanted to finish this book. I wanted to put it out there. I was so excited and I just couldn't wait for people to read it and experience it. And it did take a while because we ended up hiring our own editor. Shout out to Stephanie. And we ended up working with Shelby McFadden. Shout out to Shelby for the design. And it was a very shoestring budget operation. We put everything together ourselves. And all in all, I believe we spent around $6,000 on the design and editing. Now for our second book, we did pitch it right away to a publisher, and shout out to Chronicle. We ended up working with them and we had a great experience. They have a whole team. So the benefits of working with a publisher, aside from the paper choices, is that they have a budget for a designer, they do their own editing, and they also offer distribution to stores such as Barnes & Noble and other big locations. And so we did want to have the traditional publishing experience just to say that, we did it just to see what it would be like, and overall it was great. Now, some of the downsides, and this is just part of the industry, is that we didn't have a long time to write the book. So the almost 300 pages of this book were written in less than 3 months, and it was pretty tight. I was dealing with a solo show at the time while running my business, and so I definitely felt a little bit of pressure, felt a little bit rushed, and it was a very, very short time around. Now, when it came to actually releasing the book, it took over a year for the design to be finished, for it to be printed and distributed to bookstores. So even though we didn't have a lot of time to actually create it, it took a while to put it out there, versus with self-publishing, you have a little bit more control of how quickly you can put it out there depending on your budget and time frame. Now, the other thing about both self-publishing and working with a traditional publisher is that you do have to do your promotion. So with self-publishing, you have to rely on your audience. So if you're interested in doing it this way, I highly recommend that you work on your mailing list, on your social media following, and just your general audience so that you have someone to sell it to when it's time for it to come out, which we did. Now, with a traditional publisher, it's pretty similar actually. So they do a good job of distributing into stores, they do a good job of putting it in shops and independent retailers. But when it comes to marketing and getting the word out, you're still just as responsible as you are when you self-publish. So something to think about. And there's no right or wrong way. This day and age, publishing a book with a traditional publishing house versus self-publishing is not, one is not better than the other. No one looks down on one and thinks like it's not as good. There's actually a lot of influencers and leaders who end up self-publishing their own books. So it's not a matter of being less prestigious or anything like that. It's just a personal preference. Now, if I were to create a coffee table book and I didn't have access to certain paper or certain style of printing, I would probably want to look into working with a publisher to make that a really beautiful experience. But if I were to write a book like fiction or a memoir or something that has a lot of text and is not as reliant on design and color, I think I would probably end up self-publishing it, to be honest with you, just because I would have the freedom. I wouldn't have to worry about filling a certain market requirement. So those are just some of my personal thoughts on the process. Overall, both processes were really enjoyable for me, but because I'm a small business owner and artist, I loved the self-publishing journey because it gave me a lot more time, freedom, and space. And also, when you publish a book yourself, you get to keep most of the profits. So for example, if you work with a publisher, you might keep 25 cents of every title sold, of every book sold. But when you self-publish, you might get to keep $5 of that sale instead. So if you have a big audience, if you have a loyal following, you have true fans that you know are gonna be interested in reading what you wrote, it might be worth looking into the self-publishing model, depending on your goals. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you got some insight and to help you make a decision on whether you want to self-publish or pitch your book. It's up to you, and there's no wrong way of doing it. And there is, I think, a different place, a different situation for every season and every purpose behind your book. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next video.